Broken Down the Walls from Nathan Felix's recent release, The Curse, The Crossing the Line, and we have Nathan with us in the studio right now. And I have to say I found it to be a very powerful and moving piece with a lot of different things going on there. It's a lot of energy at some points and then a lot of subtlety and kind of peacefulness even in the midst of that. It makes me wonder, what kind of music background and influences led to this kind of combination of emotion and tenderness in that piece.
Well, I think, I come from, like I said, self-taught in everything everything that I've done. So self-taught, originally guitarist, and got into sort of indie rock and a lot of pop and singer-songwriter.
Right.
And a lot of vocal harmonies and, soft melodies in pop music and stuff. And it sort of began by translating that over into writing for orchestra.
Okay.
Throw in the mix, my love for film scores like Bernard Herrmann, and then also, I enjoyed stuff like Holst and Mahler, and
Okay.
I mean, it's just a mix of a lot of just different things that I like, and I just wanted to get it all out there, so
Okay.
and explore, like you said, all the different range of emotions.
Sure. Well, I found it to be a wonderful piece, and if the rest of the CD is in any way a reflection of that particular piece, it's going to be a really powerful CD for people to listen to and get to know. And I think it fits very well in the classical music genre. And it makes me also wonder a little bit more about the influences of, you mentioned Mahler, but any kind of classically trained composers or musicians that might have led you to think about, doing something like this in a creative way. So I don't know if you can elaborate a little bit more on that. Any classical influences?
Yeah, I'm a huge. I don't know if you necessarily hear it, but I'd say my favorite classical composers are Beethoven and Mozart. Mozart more in particular and stuff. But and I think I've gotten more into Mozart as I started finishing this one, and so my second symphony is, I think, a little more influenced by Mozart. And of course, it's exciting for me because I see myself progressing, and maturing as an artist and as a composer and stuff. So I love this first symphony. It's all the ideas that I wanted to get out, I got out.
Okay.
And then I learned so much in composing, and then in my second one, I'm excited for this one because it's very more mature for me. So
Right.
it's really fun to just sort of dream and follow those dreams, and just see the things that kind of you learn.
Okay. Okay, great. And you also said you're a guitarist, right?
I was really originally just a guitarist, and I can get around on the piano.
Okay.
And then that's about it. So
Okay.
nothing special.
So how did you translate that into composing for the variety of instruments that we hear in the symphony?
I sort of had to learn by combining the orchestral instrumentation into
Okay.
what I knew, which was rock and roll. And so I started this is about, 6 to 8 years ago, I started a band that was a rock band, and then I got people that played, trumpet, trombone, strings.
Okay.
I think that band has had over 100 people kind of come through it, sort of like a collective, because I needed to learn every instrument.
Yeah, sure.
So at some point, I think I've had almost every instrument in the orchestra in this band, and I sort of catered or tailored it to whatever I wanted to learn how to write.
Okay, so in terms of your background as a indie pop, however you want, alternative music performer, how would you kind of describe your training and your performance in that genre? What kind of influences, because I know our readers probably are a little interested in that side of what's influencing your music as well.
Yeah,
So.
man, that's a really good question. I almost forgot about that side of the music.
Well, I'm sure it's in there somewhere. It's in the music somewhere somehow.
Yeah, I grew up really, really, really taking a liking to bands that like the Clash, I think.
Okay.
And it was more bands that more had something to say, but you know, Elvis Costello was something that I sort of tried to
Okay.
you know, emulate, I guess, in some, not that I ever did, but you know, a lot of in those influences and
Okay.
stuff like that. But the main one, the main music that I sort of like is in playing or performing, you know, indie rock is a lot of instrumental music. So
Okay.
Explosions in the Sky,
Okay.
Mogwai, stuff like that
Okay.
is sort of where I landed, I guess you would say.
Okay.
So.
Okay, great. Did you play on this CD yourself or no?
No, I couldn't play an instrument to save my life. So
Okay.
just
Good.
composing.
Good. Well, what are we going to listen to next? And why would you point us in that direction? Let's pick a track.
Yeah, let's do track 5, which is called "Don't Give It Up," and I think more because it'll show you it almost has a variety of movements within this movement,
Okay.
and I think you'll see you'll hear more of like the indie stylings, I guess, of
Okay.
this, and sort of you also sort of recognize what do they call it? You know, my inability to stay focused on one theme. It just sort of goes all over the place, which is
Right.
sort of what I've learned to accept. That's the
Okay.
way my mind works. So.
Okay, great. Well, let's listen to that, and maybe it'll spur some questions in my mind. And I also want, when we come back after listening to this piece, I also want to follow up on the title of the album and what inspired that. And it reminds me of certain things, and I'll mention that, but we'll talk some more about that when we come back. We are listening. You're listening to the WTUL Breakfast with Brahms Morning Classic Show. And we have Nathan Felix, composer, in the studio visiting with us, and we're listening to selections from his CD called "The Curse